On today's show, we have on University of Central Florida pitching coach Nick Otte, and we're talking about his transition from playing to coaching, advice he had for young coaches, his pitching philosophy and why it works so well for him, and much, much more.
Welcome to another episode of the Baseball Awakening Podcast, where we dive into the raw, unfiltered, unsexy side of player development. Get ready for some knowledge bombs with your host, Geoff Rottmayer.
Welcome to the Baseball Awakening Podcast. I'm Geoff Rottmayer, and today I'm sitting down with University of Central Florida pitching coach Nick Otte, and I'm excited to learn from him today. We're going to talk some pitching. Nick, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you coming on. You know, I had a couple people reach out, and they were finally able to make it happen, so we really appreciate you coming on and listening and learning from you.
I'm excited to do this.
Awesome. You know, Nick, you had a pretty good playing career at Indiana University. And then from there, you went into your coaching career. So let's talk about that transition for you. When you went from a player to a coach. Talk about that and talk about where you're at now and kind of how you evolved as a coach over the years.
Absolutely. I was, moving from Indiana University to really my first job. I was given a lot of responsibility early. I was fortunate enough to meet Billy Gernon at a camp at Indiana University. It was an overnight camp. We stayed up late, talked shop for a while. And he said, man, I might have an opening coming up. Would you be interested? So my first job was in charge of the pitchers. Here you go run with it. So really given an opportunity to have responsibility, that opportunity to fail, see what works, what doesn't work, was probably really, really big, especially when you combine that with just getting done playing. So I have some ideas of this is what really, really helped me, what really shaped me into the player that I was. And here's some of the things that didn't work for me. So I was able to jump right into a position of responsibility with those thoughts fresh, and really start to learn, how to connect with the pitchers, with the players, and try to get the best out of them.
Very cool. So when you say, this is something that a lot of young coaches have, kind of struggle with is, you want to do good work. You want to do good work for the player. You want to help them. But when you're young and you're trying to figure some things out, sometimes you kind of have this little self-doubt of maybe failing some players. But what advice do you have for the young coaches that are kind of going through that phase? Because we all go through it, and maybe we still go through it as we develop on and learn more.
For sure. I think you want to do what you think is right. I think you're a lifelong learner. I'm constantly trying to grab information from every podcast, every video that comes out. I want to see what do I believe in? Man, that looks really good. Or what grabs me and says, this might be another way to do it. But when I'm in the moment with the player, like it's about them and what's going to fit for them. And I'm going to do what I think is right by that player. I think where you can get into a lot of trouble is when you're in that in-between stage. It's like, well, I just heard this and maybe what I was teaching, maybe that's not right. Maybe I should be doing it another way. And then you just do nothing to help that player. So, not that you need to be a bull in a china shop, but making sure that you are helping and encouraging. And, I would hope that our philosophies aren't so rigid that we do end up doing more damage than good.
Yeah, so let's talk about your philosophy a little bit. What is your philosophy, and why do you think it works so well for you? You've had a lot of success, so why do you think your approaches work?
My philosophy is I want to have the best throwers on the field. We recruit the athlete first, and from that point, we're developing them to do that alongside with that personality. Who's the guy that looks like they just love being out there, love competing. I think that's getting those things together is critical. But that first part, I think, got a bad rap early on. We got to pitch, we got to do this. And, but for me, it's like, we got to be great at throwing the ball. And I think those are the guys that hold up the best. And you see your converted shortstops, you see your converted catchers that end up being some of the best pitchers, at least for me, that I've had. I know throughout my career, I've recruited a lot of dual guys. And I think a big part of that is, what attracts me to them is just the athleticism, the durability of their delivery that lends itself to being able to play multiple positions at a high level. But I think that's what I've seen work really, really well in the past, and kind of develop my philosophy around that.
That's awesome. And it's interesting you say you're looking for throwers, because that's what it is. And pitching is just the art of getting guys down. So it's interesting. Can you talk about, when you're going to watch a kid that you're recruiting, players don't really realize how much playing catch can help them or hurt them. So can you kind of talk about what you are looking for in when you go see a guy play catch, and what needs to happen when you go watch a guy play catch?
Yeah, I mean, I just look for the rhythm that they're able to do things. So if I'm throwing the ball at 50% at the start, that there's still that smooth acceleration to release, that it's not a guided throw, that it's a throw, and the ball is working through your target, or if we're putting some arc on it, that the ball is falling generally where you want it to, and seeing the feet line up with that, or actually the feet deliver that arm action. Now, some guys aren't particularly good at that at the start, but that's also where you see your infielders and your catchers are generally able to throw the ball at the appropriate speed for the distance that they're, the distance of the target. And I look for that when I go to scout a game. I want to make sure that I'm there early enough to, I always ask the coach beforehand, hey, what time does he start his whole warm up process? And maybe he's doing plyos, maybe he's doing, some sprints and this kind of stuff, so I can watch him move there. But then ultimately, watch him throw and play catch, and see him be able to throw the ball accurately without guiding it. See him throw the ball accurately at distance, be able to change the arc on the baseball. I just think that all those play into the full picture. And generally, the guys that can play catch really well, they're able to hit the mitt when they get on the slope and go with that catcher. Very
cool. So you mentioned getting there and watching them warm up. What if do the certain things they do matter? Like you mentioned the plyo ball. Like if they're the program that they strictly believe in, I don't know, not so much. They don't believe in the plyo ball or the weighted balls, or they believe more in the core velocity ball. Whatever. I mean, whatever it is, there's so many different things out there that's helping guys. Does any of that kind of play in the factor of what you're looking for? Like maybe this certain block doesn't fit what we're doing, but the kid can throw.
Right. If the kid can throw, the kid can throw. And, I know when I was growing up, there certainly wasn't a lot of the training implements that we have now, or they weren't presented in the same way that they are now, with some of the science and research behind it. A lot more anecdotal stuff that, hey, try this, because it's what I did back when. I like to see what they're doing. And then that next phone call, I like to see, hey, why are you doing that? I like to see if they have a good idea of, when I use the core velocity belt, this is what it helps me do. This is what it helps me feel. When I'm doing my plyo pair drills, here's what I'm trying to do with them. And just see if they have a general understanding of what their body's doing with that. But I think it really makes for a good conversation that way. And then certainly I get some guys that, I don't know, that's what coach told me to do. And we'll talk about it a little bit and kind of go through the different mechanisms that they might be creating before that game. And I think a big part of my job now, especially with being at UCF, where we're able to recruit a really high caliber player, that it's important for me to understand a lot of the different philosophies, whether it's drive lines or whether it's baseball think tank and some Atlanta stuff, or whether it's 108 performance. But Florida Baseball Ranch, Texas Baseball Ranch, like have a really good understanding of what these places are doing, how they train their athletes. Because I don't want to have them come here and then say, you know what, you were really good. You were ahead of your peer set. You belong here, but everything that you did before, we're not doing any of that. Like I don't think that's the best way to get that smooth transition, to allow that kid to compete at his highest level that first time that he steps on campus. And then from that point, he's going to talk with the guys in the locker room and, hey, I saw you doing this. Why do you do that? And keep it open that way. It's where my job becomes then really managing their workload, managing the concepts, making sure I'm educating on the concepts, but not dictating that, hey, we need to do 10 reverse throws and 10 pivot picks on these 3 days. And on the other days, we have to do these other five drills. Plus we're going to throw a football as well. Like I want the athlete to come up with what makes them feel great, what allows them to compete at the highest level on bullpen day, what allows them to get back to baseline after bullpen or game day as quickly as possible. And if we don't come up with that week 1, then hopefully by week 2, we've at least crossed something off that didn't work. And by week 5, we have a good idea of how to best set up a week for the athlete.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and I would tell people I don't think any of it is wrong. I think they're different things for different people based on what they're trying to do or how they're built and everything like that. But it does force you to have to be educated on all that, and then that could be where I think young coaches would get really overwhelmed with. There's so much out there. What do we pick? What do we choose? And I think that's where the having the dialogue with the players are important. Instead of just saying, "Hey, this is not how we do it." Having that dialogue, get them to understand it, and if they do understand it, that's great. That might help you out a little bit. I think all that education part, it's a lot, but it's important that you do go through all that.
For sure. And there's nothing wrong with having a comfort zone or having the place that you feel your safe place to go back to, or philosophy that you go back to. But certainly, if you want to get the best out of your athlete, you have to at least have an understanding of what they're trying to do, and not that they're not going to move closer to maybe where your teachings are. But yeah, I think just wholesale changes early on in their career for no other reason than this is the way everybody should do it. I don't think that's probably the best approach. Yeah.
So what about injuries when a guy's arm's hurting? Because that's the kids don't want to admit their arms hurt, which you understand that. They're the mental toughness part too, but we also want to make sure that they're doing movement that could reduce the injury and help prolong their career a little bit. When you're recruiting a guy and he's you can tell when a kid's arm hurts, but you really like him. What's that conversation like? Do you pass up on a guy, or what does that whole dynamic look like?
Sure. I mean, it's all part of the, as we're trying to put together the whole picture of this athlete and how they're going to be able to perform when they get on campus. That's certainly part of the picture. I don't like that the guys' arms are hurting, but I also don't like seeing them underperform. So it's up to them to certainly weigh that out. But I see the way some of these kids are being used at the youth level, 15, 16 years old, and they're being asked to do things that Major League Baseball doesn't ask 24, 25-year-old men to do. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So some of that is predictable, that like your arm's going to be sore if, you got the shoulders of a 14-year-old, but you're being asked to tackle him like a man. So I certainly have a soft spot for that guy. I really don't. I'm not going to talk to the kid about that, because if they feel good, I don't want to plant that seed that, hey man, you really shouldn't be doing this. I don't want to start planting that seed, but I will talk to the high school coach. I'll talk to the summer coach, especially if we have a pretty vested interest in the kid, or he's already committed to us that, hey, we probably need to slow this down. Like, here's what my philosophy is on how to use guys. I get it. You're trying to win the tournament, but is it at what cost?
Right. Well, what are your thoughts on all the summer stuff? With the guys after their season, they just had I don't know, they won 10, 15 games in the high school season, then they go in summer ball and ramp it up some more. So what are your thoughts on, I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but what are your in-depth thought on the summer ball circuit and guide utilizing it?
Sure. It's the toughest thing. I understand the struggle that they're going through, because for the majority of these kids, the last pitch that they throw is going to be in that high school or summer ball jersey. It's not going to be at our level, for sure. So should that kid should he have innings taken away that he's never going to get back? Because we talk to our guys, and the majority of our guys aren't going to get to pitch beyond the level that they're at right now, and they'll never get to compete at that level against another team that is training with the same intent, the same schedule that they are, that's as prepared as what they are, and just able to go out there and lay it on the line. Like, men's league softball doesn't fill that void. Golf doesn't fill that void later on in their lives. So, I certainly respect that there are a lot of kids that, he's probably not, those extra miles aren't going to necessarily impact them, because by the time they, June of their senior year, they're never going to throw a ball at that intensity again. But I do look at the responsibility of the summer coaches and the high school coaches to take care of their best guys, because they want the best for them as well. And if you're throwing this kid on every fifth day and he's not as prepared as what he could be, or we're throwing him, that amount early on in the season, and now he's not going to be as ready for you during that state championship run. So just looking at it and having a really good idea of how to maximize this kid's 30 innings or this kid's 40 innings over the course of the high school season, or over the course of that summer season, and make sure that there's communication involved between, okay, you're going to pitch at this perfect game event or this PBR showcase. I get that. Like, that's your outing that week. That's not a bullpen. That's a 100% plus outing for you that week. And putting that in your weekly calendar that way, that's not that it wasn't the bullpen, so now he can't throw until, X days later on that.
Yeah, no, that's all good point there. What, the guy that coming in, let's kind of jump in the guy getting into your program and showing up freshman year. Let's say we'll start with the freshman more so than the JUCO grads, because the JUCO guys kind of get it. But you get the freshman that comes in and he's, all world, and he's a stud, and he gets there and he finally has to compete a little bit. Maybe struggles a little bit, maybe it's the first time he's ever struggled. What, first let's talk about guys showing up ready. What, when coaches say that, what are you talking about? Because for the people that are listening, a lot of kids show up and they're not ready, and that the coaches want that. They want you to show up ready to go and ready to compete. So, can you talk a little bit about what that means and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, and we start this, and I've been doing this for a few years now, just because of the point that you're bringing up of what does it mean to show up ready. And when we have the kids in on their official visit, start the conversation of, here's what the mental game really looks like. Because for most of them, they haven't had to use it, or the real caution that we put in front of them is that they're so much more talented than the players that they're playing against. Our pitchers are so much better than what the hitters are that they're facing, that even with a bad mental game, they're still going to have success. So where that really hurts their development is when they get here, they're going to go through those same tactics. I'm going to slam my glove. I'm going to get pissed, and I'm just going to try harder. And oh, look at that! I had more success. So that must work for me. And they get this negative feedback loop going. That now when we bring them here and they're facing hitters that are 3 years older than them, and we tell our guys all the time that we recruit to get better. Like, we're not recruiting to stay the same. We're recruiting to get better, and that means that we think that you're more talented than the last class we brought in, but those guys still have a better chance of getting on the field that coming year because they're a little bit stronger and they're a little bit tougher, and not grit your teeth tougher, but they're just able to stay present a little bit better. They're able to be the best version of themselves a little bit more consistently than what that athlete transition from the high school game to the college game is. So that's where we talk about them being ready, is can they apply the mental skills that we're going to ask of them, that we're going to present to them before their high school season. And then that we're asking them to carry those on as they get into the college ball.
Very cool. The whole staying present part, it needs to be talked about more. I think there's so many more distractions these days. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys work on your guys with that, the whole, being present part, and you can see when you watch a guy, whether he's there or not, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Coach Lovelady does an amazing job with the mental game. He talks about it daily with our guys. He'll do 30-minute dedicated sessions throughout the fall with the guys. He'll do 10 minutes at the beginning of practice with our guys, just going over different books and different readings, and making sure that they have a plan for how to handle different things that are going to happen in the game. So there's one way that we're training them. I believe in meditation. I believe in visualization. So we'll take our guys and our pitchers through different meditation practices, different breathing practices to practice being present in a really sterile setting. The next transition is we'll do yoga with the guys at least twice a week. So now we're doing this integration piece where stress equals breath. Stress doesn't equal get tight. Like, they're having to move and put their body in what can be some intense positions, but learning how to relax into those positions as opposed to tensing up, which is ultimately what we're looking for when we get to the field. We'll talk about our different warm-up techniques. So the massage work, the stretching, that again, that same concept that stress equals breath. We're not going to, make silly faces when we're rolling on some different tissue that might be all bound up. We're going to take advantage of that opportunity to learn how to be a little bit tougher, to learn that scrunching up our face and looking ridiculous doesn't actually help the muscle at all. It actually goes in the wrong direction. Yeah. But it's also something that's going to transfer to the field. And I'm not asking you to do something that's natural by all means. Like, right. I'm asking you to override that limbic response to basically crumble under that little bit of discomfort. So then we'll take that, and the biggest culmination of all of it is when we get to our scrimmages. That when we look at video and review video, when I send the guys out my comments on the video, very rarely never am I talking about their delivery in the competition. I'm talking about how they're handling that gap time, how they're handling the time in between pitches. Do they look like they are somebody? Are they handling the mound? Are they giving off the presence that they want to? How would the shortstop identify what that presence is? It's one thing to think that I'm giving off a certain image, but also, what would the shortstop say? What would the center fielder say about my body language? How would he identify who I'm trying to be during that? And I would think at they all learn it at a different rate. But I think that of the different programs I've been at, we're as intentional about it as anywhere.
Yeah, I love that, because it's true. When you get them to see how they are reacting, they start to kind of agree and that it doesn't really look too good or they look silly. So I love that because I do the same thing in my facility and it does help for them to see it themselves.
For sure. And also to show them this is what it's supposed to look like. Because I think that's always okay, Coach Wade, identified what I was doing wrong. Like, what am I supposed to look like? Well, yeah, here's what it looks like. Here's what this athlete looks like when he's competing. Here's what this athlete looks like when he's competing. And I think the toughest thing for him is, hey, what does it mean? What does competing look like? What is playing with confidence? What does it look like? How can we identify it and making them put that down in writing? Something I took it's been a couple years ago, but to put it all down on note cards, like here, write down what it looks like to play with confidence. Write down what your routine is. What's your self-image when you're out on the field, and have them put that down in writing. And, from that point, I don't need to collect them. Like, you guys just keep those, put them in your back pocket, put in your locker. But we'll do that consistently throughout the year. At least weekly, if not each game, to allow them to continue to repeat that in a sterile setting, to give them a chance to visualize that later on in the afternoon, and then to hopefully act on it when they get to that moment.
Yeah, no, I love that because especially when things go wrong, they don't know how to get back there. So when you have it in writing, they can actually see that and remind it, and then that brings that visualization back. So I love that. I think the whole writing stuff down, the journaling part, is huge, and I love that you guys do that. So the name of the game is to get guys out for pitchers. What's the key part in your guys' mind? What's the key part in getting really good at that part?
The most important part by far is identifying our pitcher's strengths. What are the weapons that we have? And we're in this video game generation where, I can go on the Nintendo and push A, B, up, down, and it's a slider on the black each time, right? So our guys can't do that. In particular, a guy that has a average at best slider and a really good fastball, even if the guy's set up for a slider, like, I'm probably going to throw that slider early in a count, because that fastball that's the win pitch. That's not the slider's not the miss pitch. It's the fastball. That's what I'm going to get the guy out with. So maybe this guy's going to be, his strength's going to be, I can flip that thing over there and get that steal a strike early in a count, but then I'm going to win with that fastball. And really identifying in our bullpens, what does this athlete, what can he do? What are the weapons that he's going to take to the battle with him? So we'll spend a lot of our time in bullpens working outside the zone. A number that gets thrown around a lot is the idea that 50% of ABs are going to be with 2 strikes. And I want to make sure that when I have 2 strikes on the hitter, that I'm going to go to a place of strength. I'm not going to go to the hitter's weakness necessarily. I'm going to go to my strength. And we tell our guys all the time, like, I got 17 options right now to choose from. And right now we have you in the game. So we feel like as coaches, and we're trying to win every game, we feel like as coaches, you give us the best option to win right now. So with that being said, only if you're going to your strengths. So making sure that we're doing that. And then that's the pitch calling. Like they have a really good idea of what pitch is going to be called in the moment. I call the pitches, but we'll talk about it throughout the week. Is okay, here's probably a sequence we're going to look at using. When this happens, when we see the hitter do this with your skill set, here's the zone we're going to go to. And that's going to be different for different guys. And certainly we have some guys that are in similar buckets, but how they're going to go about it. And even from a psychology standpoint, some of our guys are really good at their arm side fastball, where we'll start the game and just live with the arm side so that he can see himself hitting that glove before we know on that 3-hole guy, we're going to want to get on his glove side. So he got really good at that. With some other guys, they want to go to that glove side early on just because they feel like their delivery falls in line. And it's figuring out that in the bullpen setting and the scrimmage setting, so that when we go to battle, we have all those things lined up.
Nice. And you said, you mentioned that you guys will talk about what you would do based on what the hitter's doing. So reading hitters a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what are the things you're reading and what are you looking for and how that dictates the pitch calling that you're going to do?
For sure. We're gonna read swings. Is he missing underneath the baseball? Is he missing over top the baseball? And if he's missing underneath the baseball and I have a fastball that has a little bit of lift to it, then we're probably going to keep on climbing the ladder. Once we get to the top of the ladder that we're comfortable commanding the baseball, then we'll probably switch pitches and go back down. With the guy that we're missing underneath the baseball, we might start moving, over top of the baseball, we might start moving in on that guy. Before the series starts, we'll talk about our flat bats versus our the V shapes versus the uphill guys, some of the steeper swing, like just what's probably going to play with this style of hitter. Where do the hands enter the zone, and then where do they finish? So they have some of that information before they go in, and then, like I said, we'll go off the foul balls or the swing and misses from that point. With the non-swings, we are reading takes. If we throw a pitch inside and it catches some white, we see that hitter dancing out of the way, we have a really good idea that his eyes are out over the plate. Like he wasn't ready for that in there. There's no reason he should be jumping out of the way. So there's a good chance we're either going to stay in there with the fastball or maybe we're going to expand a slider away because I know that his eyes are out there. And if we can disguise that well enough, lie to him well enough, that we'll get a chase swing on that outside fastball. So those are just some of the things that we're starting to look at, both from the bench as well as the pitcher gaining that information, the catcher gaining that information from the mound and from behind the plate.
Very good. So, self-doubt and fear, that creeps into everybody's mind. It's a natural thing, So what are some of the things that we could do to kind of help a pitcher get past the self-doubt and the fear that's creeping into his mind throughout the game as he gives up a double and maybe gives up a run and he's thinking about, crap, if I don't get this out, I'm probably going to miss a start. Stuff like that. All that, because that's just the natural part of anything for anybody. And we talked a little bit about, the having a game plan and meditate and having all that stuff in there. But is there anything else that you guys do to help guys work through that part of it? Yeah,
we validate it. Like, you're going to think this is going to happen. And the only thing that I ask is that before we step on the rubber, that we're back present. Like, have your moment, have your little pity party if you have to, but before you get back on that rubber, we need to be ready to make this next pitch. So something that I think that our staff this year and my staffs in the past have done a really good job of is their catch play looks different than others. They go through their process each throw. I want them to be so intentional with the process, and it should take no longer. But they need to be so intentional with that process during catch play at 45 feet, at 50 feet, at 60 feet, at 200 feet, that when they don't attack that process, when they don't have that breath and they feel a certain way after that breath, that when they don't feel that on the mound, that it's so, like, we don't throw a baseball that way. So it's so weird at that point that they know, okay, I'm not here. I can step off. I'm going to get myself collected and try to create the best possible version of myself that I can right now. That I have permission to not be upset. Like, it's not competing to show me that you're ticked that you gave up a hit. Everybody knows that you're ticked that you gave up a hit.
Right.
Can you just be, now can you keep competing with that being the case? Different mind tricks we'll talk about, like, during the scrimmage setup, we'll say, hey, let's start with a guy on first. Let's start with a guy on second. And I just tell them, like, that's the same as the game. Like, if you give up contact, if the ball goes forward in play off the batter's bat, they're going to be on base 30% of the time. Like, that's what baseball says, and it's been played for a long time, and we're not going to be special to that. So regardless of what you think should have happened to that ball in play, man, we should have made that play, or why isn't our guy playing there? As a bleeder, why, he hit it off the leather and is able to fall in. Like, regardless of what you think should have happened in that play is irrelevant. So just think of, I guess there's a guy on second. Coach put a guy on first. Now you get to compete in that moment. So it might change a little bit of your strategy, certainly the delivery setup. But other than that, like, now we're here. And can we be immediately indifferent to the past and just compete in the moment? So I think the number one thing is we started this, and I got a little bit wordy here, but just validate their feelings. Like, this is normal. You're probably going to feel this way, but can we get back to whether it's a release routine or just into my routine and compete in the moment, whatever that situation is, whatever has happened is the way it's supposed to be, and let's just go be the best version of ourselves in that moment.
Yeah, I love that. It starts with playing catch, and being in control of your thoughts. The guy that's struggling, he can't hit the spot, he can't get outs. What's your conversation like with those guys? Because everybody's going to go through those areas, and they have more of that self-doubt and all that stuff creeped in there. But what is the conversation like with the guys that are struggling to get people out and trying to get them to focus a little harder and make some pitches?
Yeah. Oftentimes I think it's the opposite. It's figuring out, not necessarily focusing harder, but figuring out what their 100% is. And we talk a lot about that. And it doesn't always mean that I'm giving the most amount of effort, but and we use, the Jaeger long toss program, and we talk a lot about, that 300-foot throw or that 250-foot throw, when the glove doesn't, like, you throw it out there X amount of distance and you hit your partner right in the chest. Like, that's a way harder throw physically than what throwing the ball 60 feet right darn in front of you is. Maybe not mentally, but physically, it's a way harder throw to throw the ball at, with our 200 and some feet away, to line it up, to predict what the wind's going to do. You don't go through any of those, but there's the glove, I'm going to throw it there. Now, can we think about what your concern for the target was? Was it 30%? Was it 80%? Was it 20%? And most of the guys are in that 30, 40, maybe 50% range. But a lot of them are just saying, I'm just trying to get it there. And the ball ends up right where you're looking.
Yeah.
So can we believe in that? Can we just see the target and try to put a hole in the glove, try to put a hole in the catcher and allow that to happen? And then can we practice doing that? And right now it's a little bit easier to ask of the guys to practice competing that way, because we're in our scrimmage season, and as much as they're playing for playing time, but they're also learning how to compete. So that's how I want that conversation to go. Sometimes it's certainly a little bit more pointed than that, but ultimately that's what we're going for. And when I pull the athlete into the office maybe that next day and kind of, hey, break it down, man. You said some things, or I looked at your post game report and you said this, like, what does that mean? And have them kind of walk me through that pitch. And then, we'll watch it on our video system, and it never looks as bad on the video. It's cut up. You lose all the gap time. You just see the pitch after pitch after pitch. Hey, walk me through. Okay. It's 1-0 now. Well, what were you thinking here? It's 2-0 now. What are we thinking here? How'd you go about your process, and were some of those different demons and whatnot starting to creep in? Now, how would you like to approach this? Because if we're throwing you, like, I don't need you to, just because it's 2-0, I don't need you to try harder to throw a strike, and maybe trying a little bit less hard about that strike, and just allowing you to be a great thrower is the better method.
Very nice. You said a couple things there I want to elaborate on. The post game report. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's I'm asking them the questions of what I want them to focus on. How well did you use your breath? How well, how riled up were you? Is that where you normally live at? And we'll do this after pins as well as after outings. What did you feel you did really well today? What are some cues that you developed today that you think will help you later on? What's one thing that you'd like to improve on before your next outing? What's a couple ways that you're going to be able to make that improvement? But just some things that we're trying to get them to look at more so than just I threw the ball hard today and or I gave up a couple of hits, and the performance measures that everybody knows. We're trying to get more into the process part of it.
Yeah, I like it. So you also said, kind of asking them what they were thinking. I look back, and whenever I played, nobody really asked me what I was thinking. And I think when I look back now, it's like, I was the hitter, so I think I've gotten myself out more times than I should have, just by not being aware of what I was thinking. So I think if someone would have asked me that, I don't know how I would have answered it at the time, but I think just bringing awareness to that is huge. Do you find that? Do the guys, do they really know what they're thinking, or do they get better with that, or as they become aware?
Yeah, you hit it. As you can imagine, that conversation doesn't go too far the first couple of times, and then as they start recognizing it, and I think the post-pen report sometimes can start that, where they're having, what was I thinking? Did I use my breath? How intense was I during that pen? How do I feel when I play my best? And just start to ask some questions that will heighten their awareness, so that ultimately those conversations can be that much more impactful.
Yeah. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about the like you guys did practices and stuff like that. What does the fall look like for you guys?
We're gonna, in the fall, I really like to get at least one pin in with the pitcher a week, and I like to get a one outing for that pitcher each week. What I tell them is, you're going to be on schedules like starters, but you're going to pitch the volume of a reliever, because there's so much that we're trying to put in. There's so many extra throws that we're making with different, putting in different defenses and team defense, and making the different pickoff throws and all that. Plus, you're adding to that the stress of the school year. You're adding to that the weight room, which is probably a little bit new for some of the guys. So we're getting one bullpen at least, or one full bullpen at least, and then one outing in a week. They're going to have schedules set up. I try to be very structured for them at the front of the fall, so that by the middle and the end of the fall, we can start having some conversations. Okay, how do you want this week to look? As we talked about at the start, here's the concept of warming up. This isn't a workout. This is a warm up, but we did this screen and that screen on you, and we noticed that we might be a little bit lacking in this area, and you have plenty of motion in this area, so maybe we should spend more time on the tissue quality on this side, but then let's work on the stability on this other side, and give them some freedom that meets them where they need to be, that gives them the best chance to continue to be healthy and strong as those weeks go on.
Very cool. And what Yeah.
Our fall this year was, I think it was the best setup that I've had, where because of the recruiting calendar, we pushed the fall back all the way towards Thanksgiving break. So we had a really long development time, build up time prior to the fall starting. So the guys coming off of summer ball were able to have a little bit longer break. The guys coming in the summer that that didn't play, we were able to build them up and take them through a little bit of a velo phase. But as much as anything, we were able to build them up and then get them in the team weight room setting and get our throwing to match and complement what we were doing in the weight room. So that, again, we're getting the best results out of both of them.
Cool. And whenever you have a kid that's, like mechanically, he'd like, man, there's no more work. Let's move on from the mechanics. What's the goal for them during the fall? Like, cause I would assume that during the fall, not only you getting all your work in, but some of the guys are maybe working on trying to improve some of their movement, maybe develop another pitch. But when you got a guy that he's got what he is, what's their focus?
It's pitch quality. Yeah. Can we enhance one of those pitches? It's certainly not the delivery that's holding them back. So can we improve one of those pitches? Can we match it better to one of your current pitches? So we're certainly very fortunate with some of the toys that we had to take advantage of here with Rapsodo and a Chronos camera, where we can get all the high speed footage, and that part of it's a lot of fun. I would say for the majority of our guys in the fall, that is the focus. It's not certainly there's some small delivery things that we might be honing in on, and if the delivery comes from the ground up, like we're watching the feet right away, and if we might spend the whole fall just trying to get their feet a little bit better position, or be able to leverage the ground a little bit better as they're moving forward. So that doesn't get we don't get too carried away mechanically, especially when we're asking them to compete. So we'll worry a lot more about the pitches, and here's what you do that's unique. Here's what gives you a real chance to have success. Let's make sure we're taking advantage of this. Here's another pitch. Here's the way you're throwing your current changeup. Let's see if we can't enhance that a little bit, either through movement or speed or both.
Nice. The Rapsodo, it used to be, kids would get really hung up on the video and what the video looked like, and kind of get that, paralyzed, analyze, whatever the thing is, they would get paralyzed by that. Now it's more the data. Kids are getting wrapped up in the data and all that stuff. Do you guys go in depth with these guys and understanding what this stuff means, or do you just kind of use it for yourself and then just kind of build their game plan, or help them build their game plan around what you know about it?
Yeah, we're an open book, so they have access to all their Rapsodo data. I encourage them to look at it. We'll meet at least once a week, and in the fall, a lot of that was all right. Who's got a question on this information? Like, what does this mean? And I would start it out with some different bullet points on spin rate, because the classic is, is that bad or good? It's like, well, no, it just is. Right. This is what relates to you. This is why the ball moves the way it does. So we always start with the movement profile, and then start working from that point to the left of the information to start saying, well, this is, your current fastball plays at, 16.1 inches of vertical and 10.2 inches of horizontal movement. Here's why that's happening. And if they're already in a pretty good position, then, that's going to be one thing. And now, if we're trying to throw a two seam and it's also at 16.1 inches of vertical and 10.1 inches of horizontal, that's probably not a different pitch. And if we need to do something a little bit different with grip on that, then start looking at the changeup and the breaking ball off of that. So what's been really cool with that information is we'll take the take the information and look at the high speed video as well as the live speed, And then they'll start to understand, okay, yep, there's hand position. I see that. Okay, we'll do some overlays, and I see that how that pitch is going up. And now they're starting to put some information, or I guess some feel to, okay, that's what it looks like when the ball goes up out of my hand. Here's the number that I'm looking for on Rapsodo in regards to that. So, what's my release angle to the middle of the strike zone with the fastball? Okay, it's a -2. So if I can throw a -2 or even a -1 breaking ball, that's probably going to look pretty good to that hitter to swing at. And my -1 breaking ball, I don't care really where it goes, but hey, look at that. The catcher catches it just off the ground. All right, that's probably matching up pretty well there. And they can start having some of those conversations. Same thing with the changeup. We have some guys that have this big 10, 12 mile an hour spread on their changeup, and we want that movement profile to look really, really close to the fastball. That way, we're not giving it away that it's a changeup. We talk about lying to the hitter a lot with that, and we can show that on the high speed video with some overlay. With that, we have some other guys that have like 4 or 5 mile an hour separation, but the movement profile is way different. So again, we can shadow that fastball that much better. And the guys, they like the video to start, but we noticed that they didn't need the video in the moment anymore. They just they started to understand what the numbers were telling them on the Rapsodo, so that they could utilize that. So now we're only spending 8 to 10 seconds in between pitches, as opposed to having to go through the video. And I think it just keeps a nice, consistent pace to it. The other thing that I think the secondary part of that, and I always warn the guys, we go from bullpen time, where we've had 4 or 5 bullpens before we get into competition, maybe some live BPs, and then we go into the game. What happens in the game that's challenging for the guys at the start is just how much slower the pace is, especially when there's runners on base. So the hitter's getting signs, the hitter's stepping out, we're picking off. Like, there's times when there's 30, 40 seconds in between pitches. I want our guys to be rattling off pitches, and I want the pace of play to be very, very fast. But I know that most guys are much, much more comfortable in that realm, being able to go pitch after pitch after pitch. It's more like being on the driving range, as opposed to, we have to be prepared for the golf course. We have to be prepared for hitting a shot, dealing with whatever happened, and then walking up to my ball, waiting on the group on the green, and then hitting that next shot and still being in a really great place to make that pitch. So we want to make sure that we're practicing with a little bit of time in between those pitches, so that I am prepared, so that I have a place that I'm putting my head during that gap time. And then when I step on the rubber, now it's time to go through my process and deliver the pitch. So I think that, Rapsodo, because of the nature of the time in between the pitches, has helped with that in some regard.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, it's incredible what this stuff can tell us and how we can use it. So how do you use it in terms of recruiting? Like, did that help you with kind of validate some thought, or maybe even put some thought that you didn't have on a guy?
For sure. We'll use it during our prospect camps. Try to find if there's some outliers in there. I think where some people do get caught up in it is that the average is the average for a reason. And just because a kid lies in that average range doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. Doesn't mean they can't get out. It just means that they're going to have to do something else a little bit better, because the pitch metrics aren't saying that it's going to be something different than what the hitter's used to seeing. If they have a big fastball, like that's still going to play in some regard. They're probably going to have a little bit more command with it. If they're able to locate their breaking ball, throw that thing for strikes, just because the spin rates aren't off the charts, doesn't mean that it still can't play. We might just have to shape it a little bit different, or get it to work off the fastball a little bit differently. But when we find that guy that has the unique fastball, whether really high, really low spin rates, or a different axis than what the hitter's used to seeing, then that's certainly something that, like you were saying, it validates what you're seeing. for a long time, I've been tracking swing and miss, especially zone misses on high school kids, because it tells me, okay, he can throw the ball over the plate, and a kid in his peer set misses the entire baseball. Okay, that's probably going to, even if that ends up being weak contact at my level in the current state, then that's still better. Okay, really concerns me when I see the guy that's already with the above average fastball or a breaking ball that looks good, but the hitter just never misses it, because that's probably not going to change. So you can take all the data you want, but if I'm constantly seeing contact after contact after contact, there's something that he's doing that the hitter is just prepared for. And you're talking about a hitter that shouldn't be able to do those things against this what looks to be above average stuff. So that's where we'll use it to try and find the outliers, but then also using our eyes to make some assessments as well.
Very cool. So to wrap it up, Nick, what are some of your favorite resources? Book, other instructors, coaches, whatever. Who or what are some of your best resources?
I mean, I love talking pitching to as many guys as I can. I'll call coaches that I've coached with quite a bit. Hey, what are you doing with this? I think that stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
Just to talk to the guys that are in there doing the same thing that we are. I always kid about it with any place that I've been. Like, we all have the same players. They just have different names. The same guys in the locker room. So none of us are too unique as to what we're dealing with. So just seeing how they're going through it, what their experiences are with those guys, how they're able to make some positive change with their players. Past that, I really like, I listen to different podcasts. I try to get off the baseball side of it, listen to some more philosophy stuff. I think that can be really helpful in the sense that sports psychology can be really, really limiting because we only play our sport for a few hours a day. But philosophy can be more, that's the ability to practice it throughout the day to really help with the athlete or myself make some positive changes in that.
Cool. So if you were me and you were interviewing yourself, what would you have asked that I didn't ask?
What would I have asked? And I don't have a good one. I thought you did a good job with this one.
I appreciate it. Well,
all right.
Well, Nick, man, I appreciate it. I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners are too. So we appreciate your time and have an awesome day.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity.